Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, sponsored by the Draft Professors. Joined today by the Big O, Jerry Ostrowski, Randall Slifer. Owen's having some technical difficulties. He'll be added here in a minute. But we are going to dive into the Buffalo Bills wide receiver room. We're going to start talking about some wide receivers in the draft. But, all of that, this podcast has been planned for a few weeks. But Buffalo has a new head coach today. So, Jerry, what was your reaction when you saw Joe Brady was hired as the Bills' next head coach?
Pretty indifferent, honestly. I mean, looking at it, it's something you got to get behind. I mean, what are you going to do? Obviously, this stretch of head coaching candidates was lean to begin with. And, the only really candidate that excited me was Kubiak. And are you going to wait around 2 weeks to talk to him, right? And I think Kubiak's kind of got an inside track to the Raiders as it is. But let's look at this whole grand scheme of things as well, okay? Brandon Beane gets a promotion. Sean McDermott gets moved out of that spot. And you had to figure that anybody that was going to be a head coach for the Bills was not going to be somebody in the same cloth as the guy they just fired, meaning if there was any sort of perceived tension or head coach would question the general manager, probably wasn't going to happen. So amongst other things, it's probably a big reason why Daboll did not get the job, because we all know that Brian Daboll has no problem speaking his mind and giving his opinion. So that probably wouldn't work. So really, if you looked at things, I guess, the choice was Joe Brady. Now, to go to Beane and just kind of back him up with this choice, I mean, he had 6 interviews this offseason. He was a offensive candidate. He was a head coaching candidate in the NFL this year, taken seriously by many teams. I think he had second interviews at a couple places. So he was somebody that they were definitely considering and looking at. And then you go back and you look at what he's done with the offense, and we're going to talk about wide receivers tonight because, of course, the first thing anybody's going to talk about is, he's the head coach, so the wide receiver situation will never get fixed. Well, guess what? Since he's been the offensive coordinator, the Bills have had the best record in the NFL. They've been second in points scored, and they've been first in EPA, offensive EPA. So he's obviously doing something right in that deal, sans a legitimate wide receiver room. So, the thing that I am excited about is knowing how this structure is going on with Buffalo right now and knowing that he is Beane's preferred guy. The second guy usually gets anything he wants. So there's a good chance we'll get Beane needs him to be successful, right? So
bingo.
He's going to get the guys that he needs to get. So
bingo.
Let's roll with it.
Jared,
and the other thing I'm excited about too is, and especially if it's Leonard, to see who the defense coordinator is.
Yeah. Jerry, I'm with you on that when it comes down to it. Initially it was uninspiring, right? Because we thought,
but it still is uninspiring.
It still is uninspiring, 100%. I heard a rumor that from somebody in the building that Joe Brady actually got yelled at when McDermott was going back and forth, because McDermott walked into a meeting being like, I'm going to get fired. This is what's happening. And then Beane walked in the office and was like, oh, by the way, you guys are still on salary. You can get food and this, and just like shut the door. And people were like, okay, well, I guess we're all going, right? We're all leaving the building sort of thing. So at that point, I took him out. But I agree. I mean, I think that this puts more pressure on Brandon Beane as a general manager
100.
to hire Joe Brady outside of Shieldhouse or of Udinski, because if you hire Udinski or Shieldhouse, you'll be like, okay, this is this up and coming brain. We got our mitts on him, and he should be able to scheme up well. If he doesn't work out well, Brandon Beane would have been fired, but at least another organization would have been like, I like how you took a chance on him, right? Now hiring in-house with Joe Brady, if he ends up failing that, he's going to be like, okay, well, now the pressure was bad. I will now believe that you pushed out Sean McDermott and you were the head honcho on that, and then you got your hire wrong. Organizations around the area will not enjoy that, and it'll be a rough path for him to get back into a GM role. So the pressure on Brandon Beane to hire Joe Brady is higher. And now we're walking into 2026 season as we need to get to the Super Bowl still, instead of you losing the divisional round. You're like, Udinski did well, and this is what he did different. Let's work on that. Now it's Joe Brady. Take us to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is this, guys, real quick. I think the other thing is this. If Josh was 25 years old or 24 years old, it'd be one thing. You could take a chance on Udinski or take a chance on these other guys. But with him being 30, that window's like, so you don't have time to allow these guys to figure out how to be head coaches, right?
And to build on that, Jerry, so Owen, what do you think the likelihood is that you could hire a head coach that doesn't have play calling experience on either side of the ball?
I mean, we've seen it in the past, and it's worked out. Some, not worked out others. I think, and we saw that. I think there was a tweet that went out about how the big thing that sold them on Brady, a court allegedly, is that he really aced the CEO aspects of the interview process, which then local WGR radio went off like, what the hell does that even mean? What does CEO mean? I do think for when it comes to being a head coach, like, yes, there are guys who are going to be the play callers on that side, or will maintain their structure of how they had on offense, like in Joe Brady's case. But I do think even if you hadn't previously called plays and you came in, you then are more focused on being the guy who is creating the systems that work and benefit, and are a leader of men at the head of the program. Like, you're more the focus on leadership and making sure the ship is sailing correctly, as opposed to the intricate details of it. So even if you've never called plays particularly, as long as you can identify people and hire good surrounding cast that can call plays, I feel like that can compensate for that a lot.
Yeah, well, which I'm surprised that, like, Udinski didn't nail the CEO part as well, and if they were looking for an outside hire, because his time with Kevin O'Connell as that assistant, he talked about how he was consistently at Kevin O'Connell's side, learning the weight schedule mixed in with the team meeting schedule, mixed in with the separate room schedule, then mixed in with practices. So he knew on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis, how to operate to make sure that everybody gets their job done on a weekly basis. So, like, the Udinski, I'm surprised that he didn't nail the CEO as well, and then that outside voice gave him the edge sort of thing. But again, when it comes down to it, I'm still okay with it, as long as Jerry said I'd really like Leonard to come in as the DC. I think that puts a good cap on hiring Joe Brady.
But one thing, Randall, what's to say he didn't ace the CEO portion of it?
True.
I mean, we're getting their version or their message the way they want us to hear it right now. So, it is what it is. I just find it interesting. And, the one thing I do think about this is I'm not so sure that Terry Pegula might not have wanted somebody else. I do think he's letting Beane make the decision. So,
the optimist in me is trying to view it as, if Brady wasn't in the organization, he fits all the things that we were looking for, like, a 30-something offensive-minded head coach.
Right.
And the fact that he was previously in the system, you're kind of keeping that same offense holdover from when he was there with Josh, as opposed to, maybe you brought in Udinski, maybe you brought in Webb to be an offensive player, an offensive coach, a minded guy. But then you don't know how their system specifically would have worked, if there would have been any kind of smoothing over process with that. So you're keeping that system. For me, it's the Family Guy meme of, a boat or a mystery box. A boat could be a boat is a boat, but the mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat. Even those other offensive guys, they could be better than Joe Brady, but also they could also just be Joe Brady in that role, and he's already had time to kind of adjust to that system. So the optimist in me is looking at it that way. I will tell you, when that news came across, I wasn't jumping out of my seat in joy per se, but I've let it settle for a bit, and I'm willing to let it play out.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think you're in the same boat as all of us. Speaking of boats, I think you're in the same as all of us, man. We're all deciding and choosing to find the best things out of this, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the way you got to look at it. Is we understand who we are, we understand who we have, we understand our limitations, and we still have roster holes to fix, and we'll figure it out.
So, Sarah Larson on Twitter was asking, so somebody like Seller on it, and I said, I think Brady was plan B, but we would have to wait 2 weeks for plan A. Let's assume, like for me, I was assuming Kubiak was plan A, but if you don't think that you could get Kubiak in 2 weeks,
Joe Brady would have been gone.
Brady wasn't going to be available in 2 weeks.
No.
Joe Brady runs a very similar offense to Clint Kubiak as well. Clint Kubiak has a little bit vertical passing game, a little bit better, and opening up wide receivers a little bit. But that's also something that we don't know what Joe Brady can and cannot do, whether McDermott limited his style as well as the wide receiver room limiting his playbook. And as Jerry said, I agree. Bean is going to give Joe Brady what he wants, and that is going to be offensive weapons. So let's see what he can do with a big-time wide receiver that wants to play with everybody. I don't count Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs was out of there when Joe Brady became it. He was mad. He did not play to the best of his ability. Let's see what Joe Brady can do with a solid DJ Moore, which I'm going to assume because he got 2 1,000-yard seasons in Carolina under Joe Brady.
Yes.
What DJ Moore is going to do in Buffalo.
Yes.
So if we look at the wide receivers that are under contract now, and Owen, like we did some of this on the Weekly Huddle podcast a couple of weeks ago, right? Where we
right when McDermott got fired, yeah.
Yeah, we went through the roster and we said, are these players scheme specific, or no matter what scheme a new coach brings in, would they be able to adapt to a new scheme? So if we look at the wide receiver room, I was looking for Sal Capaccia's spreadsheet that would list all the wide receivers.
I sent it to you in your Draft Professor DM.
Okay. It hasn't came through yet. So
No.
But yeah, so we have Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir, I would say, are the big two that are under contract. Are any of the other wide receivers that are under contract that you guys would look at as like, yeah, they're going to be one of the best 5 coming out of camp, or are we looking to add 3 wide receivers, Jerry?
I think Cooks will come back. I think Cooks wants to be back, and he will take a very, very, very friendly contract to come back. I think he understands where he is. He's towards the end of his career. He has the opportunity to play at a good organization in Josh Allen. He's already let it be known that he wants to come back, and I have no problem with that. I think he'll be fine, especially if we bring in like a DJ Moore and some other pieces. But I think, and Randall was talking about it earlier with the cap situation the Bills are under. Obviously, this draft is going to be huge for the Bills because they've got to get those rookie contracts as part of this. And, Randall was talking about it. But the other thing is, guys that we do get are probably going to be 1-year signing vet type guys. So, the other thing you got to look at, guys, is this wide receiver position and kind of your opinion on this. I mean, obviously, Curtis Samuel and some of these guys, bad luck injury stuff. Do we have talent on the roster that maybe wasn't out there because of injury? That's something to look at as well.
So Randall just sent me the list. So the wide receivers, and we're going by Sal Capaccia's spreadsheet. Shout out to Sal. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Joshua Palmer, Curtis Samuel, Tyrell Shavers, Mecole Hardman, Steven Gosnell are currently the 7 receivers under contract. But to Jerry's point, Palmer and Samuel, are we better off moving on? Or are we better off giving him one more shot, Owen?
I was always a fan of the Palmer signing just because I felt – but the problem with him was even in Los Angeles, the story of his career was injury. Same thing with Samuel. Like, these guys were always good players when healthy. And you can see that during their times with the Bills, especially like Samuel with the Bills. They were players that fit that need when they were healthy, but the injuries have really characterized them. I think Palmer, I would stick around for another season, see if he can complement what you currently have. Samuel, I'm fine with letting walk, especially with some of the skill sets that are in this upcoming draft class, with players that can fill that same kind of role, especially in a Joe Brady offense where at least last year when he was operating under McDermott, where you saw a lot of opportunities for catch and run with the wide receivers, whether it was screens or mesh with crossers, opportunity for your guys to create after the catch. I do think Curtis Samuel would have fit that if he was healthy. But for me, him at the price point he's at, the ability to save some cap there by cutting him and just the availability aspect of it, I think he'd be someone you can move on from. Shavers is easily one of your top 5 or 6 receivers that comes back, both what he does in the run game, but also just as much as he's progressed since you've had him on your roster. So I think he's another player that you keep on. Cooks coming back would be awesome. And then from there, Shakir is an obvious one, and I can be sold one way or the other on keeping Keon. Even with Palmer, if you made a good enough argument, I think I would be okay with moving on from him. If you added 2 rookies and decided to bring in another veteran, if there was some way to alleviate the cap structure with Palmer's contract, and then before moving on from him to make it make sense with that, I know you signed him to a 3-year contract. I do think that would be something I could also be talked into.
Yeah, because with Palmer, because we just signed to the contract, the only way to even make it doable would be a trade. And I'm not sure what you can pull out of a trade. It is unfortunate with Joshua Palmer. I did like the signing as well. The hip drop tackle in the Atlanta Falcons game he just never recovered from it. He had a major high ankle sprain, and then he just kept kind of getting dinged up on that. And I think that's where that was at his worst. But a cut for Joshua Palmer this year would put us at $12 million. 11.2 million dead cap with 510,000 saving. So $500,000 to save. No. But Curtis Samuel, on the other hand, you cut him, you get $6 million. So he should be out the door. He highway robbed us of what was it, 24 million, whatever it was, 3 year, 24 million. He barely played all 3 years, getting nicked up. Somebody really funny said, a Chargers fan said that Joshua Palmer is our Buffalo's Gabe Davis, where he shined. You got super excited for him, and he just kind of unfortunately let you down at times, which I hope that's not the case with Joshua Palmer in the later years, because he runs good routes. He runs good posts to get open in the vertical threat, and he can run good intermediate routes. So I do have high hopes for Joshua Palmer next year, as long as he can stay healthy. But at that point, I would take Cooks. I would honestly get a veteran free agent or a veteran trade and get a wide receiver in the draft.
I think Cooks, especially seeing what he could do with Allen after having a full off season to be able to build chemistry, they were actively trying to build chemistry through the season. And they were able to hit on some big plays, but there was some consistency issues there you saw with either him just missing Cooks deep or Cooks not being able to adjust the balls that Allen threw. They were still trying to figure each other out in that connection. Yeah. So I do think he's going to be a player that if you bring him back and give him the full off season, he should be an addition higher than he even was previously this past season. And then it's all hoping on Kincaid coming back healthy, playing on torn PCL, as revealed by Dawson Knox. I think that's going to be a big element of how much impact you need from additional wide receivers if you do have a guy like Kincaid who can be, top 10 at his position if he is fully healthy.
So, Jerry, if a player like Keon Coleman kind of gets raked through the media, it's not the same thing as Ronnie Harmon. And I think your playing career with Buffalo started a year or two after Ronnie Harmon had his drop. Are you familiar with that play?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had it in the playoffs versus Cleveland?
The Browns.
Yeah, Cleveland, yeah.
So my question would be, can Keon Coleman recover, or is this something where you see a player in Keon Coleman's situation and the team has to move on from it?
Well, I think the owner is going to have to show up and do a lot of patchwork. That's what's going to have to happen. I mean, the organization, if they want him to be a viable, receiver on this roster, they need to bring him in the office and start kissing his ass, because they didn't do anything to help that situation. I mean, for what, that was so poorly managed. I don't even know. That's a whole nother episode. That's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
I think that Brandon Cooks did a really good job of talking in the media the next day after that, and really, praised Keon and said that he's a guy that's got a lot of skills, and they talk and all of that. But I've also talked, and this is something I think is interesting. I've also talked to a person that was on, that was a staff member at Florida State for the entire time that Keon Coleman was there, and said anything that's happening in Buffalo is not a shock to anybody in Tallahassee. This is the same types of things that happened in Tallahassee. So if you didn't do your homework and you knew, or you did know this was a possibility, or things that he was, things that he did, and you still drafted him anyway, then it's your obligation to figure out how to get him out of the rut. Obviously, I think it'll be a little bit different because, especially saying that Brady was the one that kind of pushed for him, Big Ben McDermott's out the window, so we won't have to worry about anybody holding him accountable anymore. We'll see what happens, but there's a lot of repair work that needs to be done with that relationship, in my opinion.
I think we just have to reestablish expectations. I don't think Keon Coleman is a wide receiver too. Like everybody when we drafted him, his ceiling's T. Higgins. That was never going to happen.
No.
Things along never going to happen. So we just have to readjust. Like if we get Mac Hollins for the next 2 years and then cut him, so be it. But lower the expectations of what Keon Coleman's going to be, and then viably use him in a real wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 role. And then you can contribute the way he should.
Right, and then you move him on. And you move him on when the rookie contract's up.
Bingo.
I had a take, and it was that he inevitably is going to be a 1,000-yard receiver for the Steelers because that's just the type of player they bring in and make into like a stud only in Pittsburgh. I don't know with Tomlin being gone now. That might not be.
Joe Marino read that on his podcast, I think.
Yeah, on the Locked On NFL.
Yeah.
That was one of my takes for that because he's a player. I mean, he came out and he was 20, and he's going to be 23 this upcoming season. And I mean, like, speaking as someone who is currently 25, like the amount of pressure and stuff that goes under those guys, I think different attitudes and different personalities respond to it differently. He was a guy that late transition to, you can see where the upside was. You banked on it, him being a late transition to football while in college, played college basketball initially at Michigan State before becoming a dual sport athlete and eventually just fully committing to football to the point where he was able to transfer up into Florida State. So I think we always have this expectation that these players are going to come in and be these mature players. They've been in the pressure cooker since they were in high school. Sometimes guys are just slower to come along maturity wise. So I do think that a player like Keon, if he's by year 4, you can see that his maturity level has gone up more so, and then that allows him to be on the field more often, and perhaps he gets better in play, maybe not. Maybe he's a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, but at that point he's not as much of a head case. I do think you can maybe have him be a potential second contract player, but if you're just ready to move on and he hasn't taken that step to be like your primary go-to shove ball guy, like you're Justin Hunter for a late 2010s Buffalo Bills comparison type player where he's not getting a large volume, but he has his roles in the red zone. He has his roles on specific packages. Like if he can be that guy, I think you're much more willing to keep him on, especially if he does fix the attitude issue. But I mean, that's a lot of ifs and to come around. And I do think even for, especially this upcoming offseason, if he's going to be a guy that sticks around, the investments you make are going to have to complement his skill set. So that way you're not forcing him into roles that he's not going to fit into.
I have a question on that for everybody at this point. And this is where, because you're right, it is on a maturity level because it's a work ethic level and what you're doing in the off season and showing up to meetings and stuff like that. But that maturity, once you grow, I assume will come with his work ethic when it comes down to it. And what's uninspiring to me and why I don't think he's going to get a second contract is his route running and what he still does on the field as well. He does not look like a great route runner. He's not going through physicality at 6'3", 215, like the things that an outside X that we drafted him to be will be. So if he doesn't take that step and he doesn't mature this offseason, then we're still staring at somebody that needs to develop into an X receiver aside from actually even just maturing in himself.
Well, and my response to that would be every player should get 3 training camps, but that doesn't mean he's on the roster year 3. If Keon Coleman isn't going to be one of the 3 featured receivers on this offense, I think Buffalo would be best to move on from him in August.
But what are you looking at cap-wise losing as far as having to, what is the cap hit on that?
Actually, I think you save like $1.5 million.
Yeah, it'll be like the prorated.
It's like negligent, but not losing money, adding the dead cap.
Yeah, so you'd lose the prorated portion of the signing bonus. So whatever signing bonus he got as a rookie, that is going to hit the 2026 salary cap. But you save whatever his salary was. That should I didn't do the numbers, but bottom line is you need to move on from him, in my opinion, before the regular season moves on if he's not going to be a key part of the offense. Like he would be a distraction. If he's wide receiver 5, he would be a distraction.
You're thinking like a Kyer Elam-esque trade where like you're just shipping him off to some other team for like a 7th or whatever.
Yeah, send Coleman in a 7th for somebody 6th. Yeah. Just
I think he could personally work out as a wide receiver 5 as long as it's reestablished. New coach, new regime sort of things. So I would think that you could operate in his rookie contract and then get rid of him.
Jerry was
but-
shaking his head.
Well, it's because it's not a new coach, new regime.
Well, yeah.
This is the one thing I want to get off of.
Guidelines.
Yeah, Randall, this is one thing I want to get off of. I don't understand this whole. We've all of a sudden turned freaking Sean McDermott into this oppressive leader that's running like a, some kind of communistic deal behind the scenes. I mean, seriously, like I
don't know exactly what it was.
Well, I mean, come on, man. I mean, the way people talk, would this not be out? I mean, would it not get out? I mean,
it did. Tyler Dunn made a piece about it 2 years ago.
Yeah, and where did that come from?
I don't know.
I do agree.
I'll tell you
with,
exactly where it came from.
I agree that the way the players speak about him, especially those get the ties at the top of your roster, where your leadership core, I have no question that McDermott was a strong leader and was a player, and even that he was still willing to adapt. Like, he was a defensive-minded coach who came in. I remember the early McDermott years. I would always be screaming on the TV for him to have the tenacity to go for some fourth down plays. He was overly reliant on punting, especially in fourth and shorts. They've become one of the more aggressive fourth down. So, like, I don't think he was someone who necessarily handicapped his offense and forced them to be more conservative per se. I think he maybe wasn't going to he wasn't going to be that offensive edge guy where he's going to let them go throw around the football all the time and be like, okay, cool, we're going to live and die by the pass type of guy. But at the same time, I don't think he was handcuffing the offense. If anything, he was probably more monitoring it and making sure that it wasn't going to get too out of hand to make it more well-balanced.
And I do want to say something. I don't have a problem with them changing a coach. I don't have a problem with them changing a coach at all. I understand it. I mean, this has been 8 years in. I get it. Now, it is interesting. We've just kind of gone to, instead of Diet Coke, we went to Coke Zero. They're both sugar-free, but one tastes more like, but no, I'm not. I don't have a problem with the coaching change. I just have a problem with how all of a sudden, and I agree with Owen 100%. I mean, players talk. And if they weren't happy with it, the minute he was out the door, it had been a freaking campaign. So, but yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of stuff going on that's I think crazy over there right now.
So we've covered a little bit of the Bills wide receiver room. We could probably talk about the active roster or what's on the roster for a while, but I know that I want to hear Randall's and Owens specifically. I want to hear about your wide receiver boards heading into the upcoming draft. So I know that your boards, like, I believe I've covered wide receivers with each of you, but I don't think we've necessarily done it on a podcast with both of you here. Owen, I'm curious, which wide receivers do you have first round grades on right now?
I am a bit more down on the top end of this class. I know, like, a lot of people are like, I think there were like 13 wide receivers in the top 50 of Daniel Jeremiah's recent board or someone's recent board. It was like something insane. I have 2 true first round grades, like film grades specifically. When adding in the multiplier, I think it goes up to 4 or 5. But it's just Jordan Tyson and Mekhi Lemon for me with first round grades, true. But like my top 5 is not super far out. Like they're like a half point or point out with Carnell Tate, Denzel Boston, and Elijah Surratt in that same like bucket.
And Randall, how about you?
I have 4: Carnell Tate, Casey Concepcion, Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon, and then fringe guys for me are Elijah Surratt and Chris Brazzell.
Okay. And is there any reason that you would say that any of those guys are not a fit in Buffalo?
Well, I don't trust. So Brazzell is a player that I don't have a full write-up on yet because that Tennessee offense, man, it just gets me every year where there are players that get so highly touted out of there, whether it was Jalen Hyatt in the past or there was another smaller, speedier receiver, or even like the one that went last year in like the 7th round. I can't remember his name at the moment. Who it was a Thornton, something like that, where
Dante Thornton, Cedric Tillman. Yeah,
I get it. I get what people are saying with Brazzell, especially when it comes to like height, weight, speed, outside type guy, 6'5", is probably going to run in the 4.4s. I get it, But the way that Tennessee offense operates, it's so alien to how an NFL offense operates with the receiver talent that like you can see the physical traits, but is it going to translate to a team that needs more polished, like receiver type players where they're going to be able to route up guys and win in traditional ways one-on-one? I don't know if Brazil really fits that specifically. So I'm kind of out on him for a Bills option, but some of these other guys, I think each and every one of them has a thing that I would like for the Bills, specifically with the lacking on their offense.
So, Jerry, is there a type or style of wide receiver that you would prefer? And then Randall and Owen chime in a player that fits the type of receiver that Jerry describes.
I mean, Carnell Tate's a guy that's phenomenal. He's a very good player. The guy that I like is Mekhi Lemon. I like Mekhi Lemon because I like his deep threat stuff. I know he's not as big as Carnell Tate. He's under 6 foot. I think he's like around 5'11", but he's a physical dude. He's got good size to him as far as bulk and all that, but he can go. I mean, most of his yardage and stuff is downfield. He's good at deep routes and gets a lot of separation downfield. So I like Mekhi Lemon, somebody like that. Of course, Carnell Tate's like kind of cream of the crop, although I know Jordan Tyson's been rated higher than all of them. But I do like Mekhi Lemon.
Well, so then question on like Lemon and Tyson. So Owen, based upon how you've graded Tyson and how you've graded Lemon, how high would Buffalo have to trade up to go get him?
So Tyson for me, and I'll go to my multiplier board because that includes the positional multipliers. Tyson is 8th overall on my board. Like I don't factor in injuries, so maybe you're looking more towards like early teens for him because of that, because he has had injury histories in college, but he is the full package, has side, has movement, is fluid with speed, rack ability, can play above the rim. Like he has the full package. And if I was factoring injuries, again, it'd probably be a bit lower, but for me, not having to do that, I do think he's a guy that maybe isn't lacking the top end juice for down the field, but it doesn't impact him being able to make plays down the field per se because of his route running, because of his physicality, and still having some speed to his game. So I think for me, if he falls because of injury, maybe not as much. If he goes sans injuries, I think there's no real shot you're gonna be able to move up for him. And Lemon, I've seen ranges on my board. He is closer to that range as well. He's a player number 13 for me with the multiplier. So you're looking at that, 13 to 20 range. So maybe not as far of a trade up, depending on how far he falls, or if some of the other guys go ahead of him, if teams fall in love with, Carnell Tate, Denzel Boston, someone like that ahead of Lemon. But I do think that he could be a guy that's more in a realistic trade up situation if they do want to get aggressive and get a guy that, we've had 5'11" route running with downfield threat type players and Stephon Diggs on this offense previously that worked with Josh Allen. So if you're looking for a player in that mold, I think Lemon could be the guy. And if he slips into that later teens, early 20s range, you should be aggressive to try to go get a player of that caliber.
Yeah. And Randall, how about you? How far do you think we would have to trade up to get a Lemon or a Tyson or possibly a Tate? Is that like top
Tyson?
15?
Yeah. I mean, Tyson's interesting. I'm curious because he hasn't played a full season since 2021. He tore his ACL in 2022, out all of 2023, collarbone in 2024, and then ankle issues in 2025. So I'd be curious if he does end up falling, and I would take a waiver on him all day if he gets into like JSN treatment. JSN shouldn't have been picked at 20, and I was hoping Buffalo was going to trade up for him at that point. So that could be an interesting thing where with Jordan Tyson, I would take that chance and I would trade up if he falls to 20 or 21. I'm not sure where Mekhi Lemon is. I am lower than probably all three of you on Mekhi Lemon. I think Mekhi Lemon works in the slot most of the time. I don't think he's going to be able to work that much outside. He can high point the ball and he has strong hands, but his size will affect his contested catch ability translating to the NFL. I don't think it's going to be a full one-to-one transfer from college to NFL with his strong points. And I always go back to the Notre Dame game when he got matched up against Leonard Moore in the slot and a little bit on the outside with Christian Gray. And he got stoned. I think he had 4 catches for 70 yards, but Leonard Moore one-on-one with him stopped him the whole entire game until he got a 35-yard explosive catch against Christian Gray. So that's basically NFL cornerback versus NFL wide receiver matchup in its truest form in college. And he got stoned. So I don't know if I would trade up for a slot guy who does have tape showing he got stoned at that point. Tyson, I would do. Carnell Tate is my number one all day. So if Carnell Tate falls to the late teens, I would figure out a way to get him for sure. But then my wide receiver 2 is Casey Concepcion. I think he is one of the most explosive wide receivers in this draft. He is truly at his size, can work inside and outside. Again, going back to a Notre Dame game, he won outside and inside. If it wasn't for Marcel Reed in that game, he overthrew 3 touchdown opportunities to him. He would have went $175 for 3 touchdowns in that game. He won outside on press releases. He won outside on double moves at the stem work. He is a burner on all 3 levels. Only issue he has is sometimes he drops the ball, but I'm going to ignore that for the draft because I think he's a perfect fit for Buffalo.
So Casey Concepcion, there's a draft professor that describes him as Khalil Shakir on crack. Owen,
Ass off.
buy or sell Casey Concepcion as a round 1 wide receiver to Buffalo?
I mean, round 1, I won't sell that hard because I am still a fan of Concepcion. I don't see him as much, excelling on the outside. Like, he did have good reps. I think all these guys have reps that he can shine, and I think that Notre Dame game especially was one where he excelled on the outside. But he's a player that a lot more you see, like the wide receiver bubble screens or the same kind of offensive plays to get the ball in his hands, allow him to work after the catch that Buffalo uses for their wide receivers. So he would operate in that way for them. It would work for the Bills if they would want to have a dual-sided, be able to flip their plays one way or the other instead of just having Khalil Shakir be the only option. He's one of those guys that can replace a Curtis Samuel. I do think if you're looking for the offensive position to fill that, like we talked about Curtis Samuel, maybe it's Concepcion, maybe it's DJ Moore. He's another player on the trade market that fits that ability to be more of your after the catch type player. Because for me, Concepcion as a route runner or as an outside deep threat type player, not just in the slot deep threat, I don't know if he is someone that can excel to the point where NFL competition against where everyone's bigger, stronger, faster. Yes, I know his quarterback sold him a bit, but I do think that he's a player that would struggle a bit more on the outside. I think he is kind of how Randall described Lemon, more of a guy that's going to excel in the slot, come to the next level, similar to that Khalil Shakir comp, on crack or not, by the other draft professor. For me, though, I think the player that I think would fit that role. We talked about trading for DJ Moore, a player that I think is very similar in play style of DJ Moore and would fit kind of that outside inside type player, but operates a ton more with the ball in his hands and as a pure route runner is Chris Bell from Louisville. Like if you wanted to take a swing at a guy for that role in the offense, 6'2", 220, kind of like Xavier Legette-esque when he was coming out of South Carolina, where a lot more raw as a route runner, but has height, weight, speed, and can make guys miss with the ball in his hands and explode and create explosive plays after the catch. So, I mean, if you want to add that element to your offense, go with him because he offers a bit more than like a Concepcion does physical-wise. But I think I'd rather go with a guy that can win one-on-one route running-wise on the outside, like a Surratt, like some of the other guys we talked about already with Tyson and Tate, people in that realm, more so than anybody that's going to be more of a gimmick type receiver at back end.
Jerry, what did you want to add?
I got 2 things. One is a comment, one's a question for you guys. The comment is, why would we even be considering or looking at anybody that would be a slot receiver with what we have on our roster? I mean, we've got ample. We got Shakir, we got Keon, who probably should play slot because he gets enough separation because of the slot consideration, so that would help him. And then you got Kincaid, who is a tight end that basically plays in the slot as well. So I think we got the slot lined out. My question to you guys is this. You look at a lot of mocks, and one guy that kind of falls to the Bills in a lot of mocks and I kind of I looked at and just wanted your opinion on him is Denzel Boston from Washington, 6'4", 209. He is a junior. He's a little bit young. He's, but he does fall to that Concepcion and Boston kind of fall in that same area. Your guys, I know with the the analysis and stuff you do on receivers, kind of your thoughts on Boston.
I like Denzel Boston. I'm a little bit lower on him just because I guess I'm having a little PTSD with like him and Keon are very different, but walking into Keon Coleman and drafting him, it was about his contested catchability and his ability to high point the ball. That's Denzel Boston's number one feature. But Denzel Boston is a polished route runner. He's got kick returner, punt returner ability. His intermediate routes are very good. His short routes are decent. He can decelerate well for his size. So I don't think we'd be falling into a trap of that situation. But again, I'm just very weary when I scout wide receivers is when your contested catch ability is your number one or number two feature, because when NFL corners and NFL defenders are bigger, faster, and stronger, then it's still going to take a hit no matter what. So I'm just a little bit uneasy in the fact that his strong point is contested catch ability. I think he does have the opportunity to be close to T. Higgins if you can get him there, and that's a win in itself. So I'm definitely down with somebody like Denzel Boston. And you mentioned Elijah Surratt. He's my wide receiver 5. I'm a big fan of him. I think he runs routes with a high IQ that plays outside, kind of like how Cooper Kupp runs routes. Physicality never affects him, and then he stays in his steps and knows when, and just stays in line, methodic in his route running, doesn't let physicality handle him. So I would take Elijah Surratt over Denzel Boston in that aspect, but Denzel Boston is kind of like a better, sure thing of a Keon Coleman idea when we drafted Keon Coleman.
Is that why his man coverage grade is so high? Because he's contested to be able to catch the ball in contested situations. Because he does have a very high man coverage rate. Like he's good at catching the ball against man coverage.
So I'm not just from watching them in film. I'm a Washington Huskies fan. I watch them as they're my college team I particularly choose to root for. And I think for me, the cover on Boston first, to answer your question, Jerry, before I get to Surratt, Boston my wide receiver 4. And he's a player that is a glider, long stride type player. I watched Keon when he was coming out, and I wasn't his biggest fan. I thought he was more like a third round receiver than top of the second, borderline first. I don't get the same vibes as I do with Boston when it comes to their contested catchability. Not only was Keon, you can tell, was a player that played through physicality and would go up to get the ball, and maybe his quarterback play didn't allow him to attack the ball as well as he wanted to, but he played more so through a guy's body, whereas Boston is much better at screening off and then boxing out and utilizing his length as a weapon to go and create angles for his quarterback to hit him. A lot more of those back shoulder throws, a lot more be able to create his space as opposed to trying to out-muscle the defender. So I think his contested catch translates more than what Keon's did while at the college level. And for me, I think if Boston he had an ankle injury that nagged him all this past season. He played through it.
Yeah, I remember
that. Still put up crazy numbers. Him and Jonah Coleman both got hurt. Yeah. And I think he'd be getting talked about a lot more in the higher up in the first round if he didn't get banged up as much. But he's a guy that if you ask him to run comeback routes, stuff that's more hard cutting, deep ends, he's able to utilize his physicality and length to create separation at the point, despite not being the twitchiest, most explosive guy. So I think, Jared, to answer your question with that, that's why I think he excels a lot more in man coverage. Is not only can he utilize and create space when it's tight coverage in man coverage, but when guys try to man him up and carry with him, if he has a harder cutting route, even though he's not the fastest guy to set guys up to deceive them that he's going deep, he's able to create that kind of push off type spacing at the start of his routes because he utilizes his physicality better than like a Keon, who was way more raw with it, being such new to the full-time position when he was at Florida State and just wanting to be like a physical contested catch guy. I think Boston's a lot more fluid with that and able to utilize it in more of a succeeding way than Keon was at his time in Florida State. With Surratt, I love Surratt, and I think what he brings, he's a bigger body guy too, 6'3", I believe, like two teens.
Yeah.
And he was lighting up for Indiana this year. He and Carnell Tate, for me, are like two sides of the same coin, where Carnell Tate, I love his ability to be deceptive and run deep routes. And while not being the fastest guy, still create down the field separation because he's so deceptive with his head movement and his hand fakes and his footwork while in full stride, having those long strides and being physical and big body while still getting down the field and with that build-up speed. Whereas Surratt, even he's also physically limited with speed, but he is very sudden and knows how to utilize his movements to create windows, shield guys out of his frame. So that way, even in the short to intermediate, if he's not beating you with his route running, he's walling you off from the catch point to be able to make an open target for you. And he finally last year I wasn't the biggest fan of him. This year he took that step because he got a quarterback in Fernando Mendoza that could throw those chemistry back shoulder throws no matter where they are in the field. He looks over his guy. He knows he's got that back shoulder on the sideline and knows where to put it, and he knows where he's going to put it. And that was something that I really loved. My favorite aspect of the Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs pair up when they were together was Diggs and Allen were on that same page to be able to have that back shoulder. Diggs was never a big guy, but he could win and had a high contested catch rate because of those back shoulders. So I think Surratt is a player that once you get him with a quarterback that can build chemistry, he can win with routes, but also can create that back shoulder kind of always open no matter what type of receiver that I think this team has kind of lacked. I would complement maybe some of the slot guys they have, and even like a Keon who's exclusively more of a put it up and I'll jump over this guy. It's a much different way of being a contested catch player despite having size.
No, it's funny. Jeremy White brought this up. Jeremy White brought this up the other day on Bill's Squad. I thought it was pretty, or he actually brought it up in a group text we talked about on Bill's Squad. When you look at Seattle, they've got Njigba, they've got Cooper Kupp, and then they've got Rashid Shaheed, right?
Right.
It's almost kind of like the original inception the Bills had of Diggs, Beasley, and Brown. They're very, they're almost like a spitting image of that original inception of Diggs, Beasley, and Brown. You got the burner, the slot guy, and
that does make sense.
and ironically, that was actually one of the questions I was thinking of. What is the most important trait that you guys think we're adding to the wide receiver room? Is it the route running, or is it somebody that can get downfield?
I think it's natural separation.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. You go ahead first. Go ahead.
I want a natural separator because obviously we were one of the lowest in 2025 and probably 2024 in just natural separation on a wide receiver. I don't really care how it's done. I don't need a short, speedy guy. Like Elijah Surratt can separate in his route running as well, sort of thing. So you don't really need it. You just need somebody consistently as a natural separator to be able to get first downs without just scheming plays, but letting guys play.
My big thing is you got to be able to stress three levels of the secondary. So, you need, and whether it's a burner or separator, whatever, somebody can get downfield, that middle level, and then the short stuff. I just don't feel we ever have anybody that consistently, look at Cooks. Cooks shows up in 4 weeks. We're not playing him the last game of the season because we're worried about him getting hurt. Right. That's how precious. That was like finding water in the desert because we just were so depleted of not having anybody with that skill set. And, we find a 30-some-year-old man and we're like, eureka, like it fell from the sky. But, that's the thing. He gave you that ability on that third level. And just I always feel that the best passing games can stress all three levels. Mm-hmm. And so whatever we do to bring in somebody that can get deeper or stress that top level or third level of the defense, that's what I'd like to see.
I was thinking along those lines too. I didn't hear anything when you guys were talking about Surratt, where he's going to give us something downfield. He's not going to be the field stretcher. So we would either need to have that with another receiver on the roster, or look at the draft class a little bit differently. But Owen, what's your take on that?
Well, so I hear why both would be a good answer. I don't think either is the wrong answer. I think you need to add both to this wide receiver room. I think bringing back Cooks will help with that field stretching. For me, when it comes to, especially we're talking about first-round picks, back out of the first, even second-round picks if you trade back, you don't want to go and get a guy that is just speed to take off and be available in that third level because that's not a high-volume type target, whereas I feel like this offense, when Kincaid is hurt, which he often is, you're lacking a guy who can be a true volume target for this offense. Like Shakir was that in the playoffs, but you would be better off served if he wasn't the guy getting 12 to 15 targets a game, which is why I like Surratt as a separator per se, where he can be open route running, short to intermediate, does that back shoulder stuff I talked about, where he's when they want to run man coverage, when they want to do the Cleveland Browns and run, what was it, like 80, 90% man coverage, something ridiculous.
Right.
You have a guy that can consistently win against that. I think that's what I'm looking for, is someone who can trust to win one-on-one coverage, and then either double dip with getting just a pure speed guy to be able to take the top off, bringing back Brandon Cooks, or doing both, bringing a guy in like Brandon Cooks or someone in free agency to be a speed third level guy that you're utilizing for that purpose alone, and as well as maybe drafting a guy that could be the eventual developmental player there.
Well, let me ask you guys this
That's
question.
what I
then.
love.
Yeah, let me ask you guys this question then, since you put it that way, and kind of stealing from the Los Angeles Rams model of the 13 personnel offense, which they run a ton of 13 as well. And where they rely on is you can't go ahead and play 78% man like Cleveland did, because we will beat your head in with Puka Nacua and Adams and whoever else we have outside, right? So maybe is the correct way to say this with the Bills, Owen, Randall, you guys, what your opinions on this? Is the correct way to say this not necessarily we need a separator or a burner or a third level guy. We need somebody who can win consistently against man coverage is what we probably
100%.
I don't give a damn about anything else than beat man coverage. If you can beat man, then that allows us to do the things outside to where when they're packing the box against the run, we can win those routes outside, which is that's what the Rams do. That's the other half of this equation that they've gotten to because their wide receiver talent so much better.
Oh, yeah, Puka Nacua can fight through anybody. Oh,
Right.
I have a question for you. Who is your wide receiver with the highest floor in this class?
I think highest floor would have to be Carnell Tate, just from his size and ability to. But what makes him special is his ability to win deep despite having the size. Like, he could definitely win in contested catch situations, be just your stereotypical big body receiver. But the fact that he is so adept at utilizing his athleticism and his route running while in full stride to create separation beyond of what you normally expect from a guy of his skill set, I think gives him both a high floor and a high ceiling, which is why you see a lot of people falling in love with him. I think there's a lot of stuff that still needs to be added to his game to round him out. I don't think there's particularly like a ton of ceiling for him when it comes to being short to intermediate, like an all-around receiver. But as a guy that you're going to bring him in and he's going to do a role and do it well, he's a guy that I would bank on to have like the high floor. And to speak to what Jerry was talking about, that's why I'm such a big fan of like a Lemon or a Surratt specifically, and even a Boston to some extent, where these are guys that beat one-on-one coverage in certain ways. I think Lemon, what Randall is saying, I understand, especially against the Notre Dame game, but other games you can definitely see him winning in routes wise when it comes to one-on-one coverage. They're trying to isolate you and just make sure you can take you away. And if you do that, we're going to punish you, because he has speed, but he also has the ability to deceive and get open with separation in the short and intermediate. Surratt doesn't have the speed over the top, but can be that chemistry type, can still win with routes, and he doesn't have the speed, so the guy's going to be in his hip pocket, but he can win contested catches downfield. Like, he does that. He has a limitation in that way, but he still can win on occasion, to keep you honest. For someone that we haven't really mentioned yet, that I'm going to look at more so if we want to come back around to like our end of second round pick, that could be a player that would win in that way. Ted Hurst, he's going to get the Senior Bowl. Georgia State. He's a player that I absolutely love. He's got a decent release package. I do think he can develop a bit more with his hands, but if you try to press him, he can win. He's another guy, 6'3", 6'4", kind of long and lanky, though, not really big, beefy kind of guy. Can go up and high point the ball, but he wins with some really good routes, has speed to his game. He's a player that if you want to go maybe a different position, maybe if like Caleb Banks falls to you in the first, or someone that has like is one of your true first-round grades at the end of the first half instead of reaching for position, and you want to come back around and grab a guy that fits all the things we're talking about, but maybe isn't as well-polished or to the point that some of these other guys we are talking about are at, Ted Hurst is a player that I'm particularly in love with. Him or like Chris Bell, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah,
not going to argue that.
Randall, if like Owen said, we punt on wide receiver round one, and we have a choice between Chris Bell, Jeremy Bernard, or Ted Hurst in round two, which of those guys do you like better at the end of round two?
I like Ted Hurst. It's close between Ted Hurst and Jeremy Bernard. I'm not a huge Chris Bell guy drafting in the top 64. I could get on it, but the torn ACL, how's that going to affect his speed? I don't think it should be crazy. And then also, I'm nervous about Buffalo developing a Chris Bell into does he turn into Xavier Legette or can he turn into AJ Brown sort of thing? I'm nervous about Buffalo and their wide receivers and what they do with them. But I would take Ted Hurst over Jeremy Bernard. I think Ted Hurst has better, well, obviously he definitely has better speed, but I like Ted Hurst's speed mixed in with his route running. Jeremy Bernard can be a very good Z. He's very methodical in his route running. I really like Jeremy Bernard, but I would take Ted Hurst intangibles, his ceiling. From what I've heard from the Senior Bowl is that coaches love him, everybody loves him, and things along those lines. So I think he's got it all, and he's starting to prove in the Senior Bowl against good competition. Everybody saw that one-handed catch. I mean, that was against Julian Neal, who is projected a top 100 cornerback. So there you go, sort of thing. He's proving it against tougher competition. So I would take Ted Hurst.
Have any of you guys – go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to give a quick – because I know, Jerry, you maybe not know are as in-depth with these guys. If you want to answer this question, I could give another synopsis because I know you kind of covered Bernard a lot real quick there, Randall. And I like Bernard a lot. He's of those three, he's my highest graded player. Whereas Bernard is a lot more of that, true number 2 type receiver, Z, not going to be your X. Maybe in a 13 personnel system, you're not too worried about that, who your guy on the outside is, because your focus is more so on the box and you're giving them more cushion. So Bernard can win. He's probably one of not he's like one of the top route runners in this draft class at all 3 levels for me. And he's a guy that can win that way. I think his contested catches, he plays a bit higher above what his weight class is, but I don't think it's something that he really hangs his hat on. But as a guy who can just win with routes and get open and has some sneaky athleticism, he's a player that I like there. Hurst, we talked about, I think where he can stand to grow is, like I said, he's kind of a string bean. If he can add that physical element, we talked about Keon Coleman and then even Denzel Boston. He's the opposite, where he can win despite being tall all these different ways, but he just doesn't have that physicality element to his play yet, where he's more so finesse. If he can add on another 5-10 pounds of muscle, which his frame looks like it can add, and win through some more physicality, I think he could be more of a steal player. And then Chris Bell, if you're talking about the DJ Moore is big, like AJ Brown, DJ Moore type mold receiver where they're big, fast, have all these intangibles, but need to kind of coach them up with route running and hands consistency. The more finite details of the position, Chris Bell is your way to go there, but he's kind of more on the raw side, so he's a bit lower than the other 2 for me.
I mean, Ted Hurst went from 195 to 207. I'm curious if
I don't know if
actual, right? He was listed 195, and now he was 207 at the Senior Bowl. I didn't see on that one clip a much difference in his body frame, but 207 is much better than what I had listed 105. Sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
Have either of you guys graded Bryce Lance from North Dakota State?
Yes. I like Bryce Lance. He's a 4th rounder for me. What he does, my favorite thing that he does, other than good deceleration, is his capabilities on the outside, right at the sidelines. He has great body control, can high point the ball. He's more of a project with moving on from NDSU and going to the NFL. I bet would take a little bit more for him in how he handles press and his route running at the stem. But overall, I do like Bryce Lance, and his sideline controls is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to him yet. He was one of the players that I still was waiting on just because I'm hoping to see some more, whether it's the combine or I don't know if he's gotten invited to.
I think he's at the Senior Bowl, isn't he?
Is he? I thought he was.
So.
He's not. I thought he went to a postseason.
I think he backed out.
I think he was one of the guys that backed out of the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
okay,
so Owen, Randall, real quickly, I'm going to ask, is round 2, round 3, or day 3 on the following players? Omar Cooper Jr., Jacoby Lane, Skylar Bell, Antonio Williams, and I'll stop the list there.
So Antonio Williams, I have day 2. I have round 2 on Antonio Williams still, but it's kind of a lower end of the round 2 just because he's another player, slot, kind of explosive. Cooper Jr., I have round 3. Skylar Bell, I have low end of round 3. You could talk him into day 3 a bit more, but I think he's got some stuff to him that can put him above that. And then what was the last one? It was Lane.
Yes.
Lane is higher end round 3 for me.
Okay, so for me, I have Antonio Williams as a 3rd rounder. I have Jacoby Lane as a late third rounder. Omar Cooper Jr. I have as a second, like a mid-second, like back half of the round 2 wide receiver run. The other one, Skylar Bell is my last wide receiver in day 2. And then who am I missing?
That was it.
I think you got them all.
That was it? Okay. Yeah.
Antonio Williams. Antonio Williams.
Oh, Antonio Williams, a third rounder, like beginning of the third round. I'm intrigued by Antonio Williams. I know that he had an off year. Curious to see his high ankle sprain in week 1, what it affected him, how long it affected him, because he did have a good stretch at the end of the year. And he is also a Z-type receiver that can handle rushing the ball as well as passing him. I don't think, like, he could be a Curtis Samuel replacement, to be honest.
So that real quickly gives me an idea that other than maybe at the very top where there's some difference in who's like wide receiver 1, you guys are seeing like the difference between a late day 2 and, or I should say a late round 2 and an early round 3. Like we're splitting hairs in my opinion, right? Like if Antonio Williams is late round 2 or early round 3, right? Because that's relatively consistently, that's where a lot of other people within draft professors have those guys graded. I was just trying to see like if your boards merged like on day 2. So the question would then be, any of those guys that you think are better fits for Buffalo than the others? Like you prefer, like you may be lower on Skylar Bell, but he's a better fit for Buffalo than Jacoby Lane or something to that effect.
I mean, I think that statement isn't inaccurate for the 2 players you mentioned. I think there are other players I'd rather have on the Bills of the names we've talked about than Skylar Bell. Jacoby Lane is just, he's that physical, contested catch type guy, 6'4". They had a couple of those guys at Notre Dame or at USC, whichever one.
USC,
I think. Yeah, I'm getting him mixed up.
Malachi Fields is the
Fields.
Notre Dame guy that is in the same criteria.
Yeah, similar players where it's like we have those. We have a Keon Coleman. We can always get a guy like that. If you want, just an example there, if you miss out on Lane, if he does go earlier than what I expect, you can always go with a Malachi Fields. But I'm kind of sick of the contested catch. That's how you win in one-on-one coverage. Kind of what Jerry was talking about earlier. And it's what I really value is make it so that way you are punishing the other team to running one-on-one man coverage. We didn't have a guy that could consistently win against one-on-one man coverage this year. And if you have that dude out there, you can run anything out of your offense. You could run 13 personnel. You could run spread. You could go empty. You could just go out of shotgun with your rushing attack because they have to respect that guy's out there and he could be a target at any time, which is what made those like Diggs, Allen offenses so dangerous. Was you didn't know whether or not he's going to go to him in that play. You still have to devote focus to him and send doubles his way on occasion and lean your safeties that way. So whether it's you're looking at guys who can stretch the field, you're looking at big body guys, I think the number one thing you need is that guy who can win one-on-one. And I'm much more in favor of a guy who can win that other than just winning one-on-one contested balls, and that's all he can do kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
so Randall, slightly different question for you. If Joe Brady goes to Brandon Beane and he says, if you get me Brennan Thompson or Zachariah Branch, the offense is fixed. Are those guys the solution to getting Buffalo? And I'm glad I'm
not even the slightest bet. I mean, like Zachariah Branch is a manufactured toucher. Like when we're talking about Casey Concepcion being Khalil Shakir on crack. I mean, if we're adding Zachariah Branch, then we're just kind of stealing away from Khalil Shakir at that point. Because I see Zachariah Branch as just a manufactured touch guy, yak, get and go, sort of get him the ball and go. So I'm very much
more explosive than Shakir.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's going to run very fast. He was track in high school and things along those lines. So I do believe that he will run faster. I think Zachariah Branch is like a light Tyreek Hill sort of situation. But and Brennan Thompson, I mean, Brennan Thompson is a double dip candidate for me. I have him as a 4th rounder. My first 4th round wide receiver is Bryce Lance. My second 4th round wide receiver is Brennan Thompson. I really like Brennan Thompson. I've been on the Brennan Thompson train for a long time. But 5'8", 170 is rough, and that was verified. I'm sure that'll be verified in the combine. I don't know if 5'8", 170 is going to do it and where he can, but Brendan Thompson glides on the field. He's impressive to see, but again, he's going to have to go in the slot. Can't really win outside, so neither. And then Joe Brady and Brandon Beane get fired. So
yeah, there's so many wide receivers that could fix what the Bills need. There's just as many wide receivers that are redundant at what they don't need. And I have a question for Jerry. Like, Jerry, can you name me like phrases or descriptors of receivers that you don't want to hear coming out of analysts' mouth when the Bills draft a receiver? What is, if you hear them describe this receiver as this?
Great question.
What are you not wanting to hear?
Small area, quick guy that excels in the slot. That's number one.
I just described Zachariah Branch and Brennan.
Number two would be big-bodied receiver that knows how to post up and use his body well to shield off a cornerback to high point of football in contested areas. That's another one. What else do I want? Really good route runner has no yards after catch ability. That's one I don't want to hear. Basically, I want somebody to freaking run down the field and get open. I know that sounds awful generic. I mean, that could be in a lot of things, but like I said, I want to press the third level of the defense.
I'm going to say this a million times, and I know Jim has heard it a million times. And Owen, I'm not sure if you watched this player before, but let's say we get DJ Moore, let's say we trade for DJ Moore, right? And we get DJ Moore, we spend a third on him, so we're not going to spend our first and second rounders on a wide receiver.
Right.
I consistently pound the table for a day 3 Malik Benson from Oregon guy. I think Malik Benson is going to show out in the combine. I think he's going to show really well. He was a track star who ran a 10.4 100-meter. He looks the part of Jameson Williams. He doesn't have a big route tree, but what he does is he burns people on the outside. He's 6'1", 195. Will probably run a 4.35. He can run the Jameson Williams type routes, 3-level burner, short speed, explosion, intermediate, and long speeds there. You get him in a room with DJ Moore and everybody else. That's your field stretching guy right there. At 6'1", 195. Not 5'10", 180, 185. He's 6'1", tall enough, and almost 200 pounds.
What are we projecting Deshaun Stribling to run 40-wise?
4.5, 4.55.
Really?
I thought he'd be a bit faster than that.
No,
he
was at Oklahoma State. He was at Oklahoma State before he went to Michigan.
Stribling. Owen's been on Stribling since the summer.
It's the summer.
I love that you haven't quit him.
I watched Stribling because of you, Owen.
Stribling is a guy that I think just does the stuff you want from like a wide receiver 3. Like, he's not going to be your number 1 guy. If you're going to look for double dip options, I think Stribling is a player that I like just because he blocks his ass off. He plays physical. He did a lot of stuff after the catch where like he was just a handful to break down. Like he was 6'2", 200, and he kind of turned it on in that late run that Ole Miss had this year. He did. And I liked his tape at Oklahoma State, and I was excited for him to go to Ole Miss because I thought he'd get more of an opportunity in the offense, and he didn't until they made that transition at coach. But I do think he's just a guy that, while he isn't stand out when one particular skill set, I do think he can be a guy that does the little things with some higher upside than maybe like a Chris Hilton does. Does the same thing in that category. So,
Randall, your DJ Moore is my Alec Pierce.
I'm fine with Alec Pierce too, but that will readjust in the draft. But man, do you think Alec Pierce is going to command $20 million?
Yes.
Oh yes.
Are definitely paying him $20 million?
I think it'd be worth it. If memory serves me correctly, Pierce was here on a 30 visit.
Yeah.
Right?
I like Pierce. Pierce had a hell of a year.
Right. But we could have taken Pierce when we took Bernard. Now, Bernard was a great pick. So I don't want to hate on the Bernard pick, but I've been pounding the table for Pierce at the last 2 trade deadlines.
I mean, to be fair, DJ Moore has a $28.5 million cap hit next season. So if you're willing to trade for DJ Moore, you should be willing to pay $20 million for Alec Pierce with that. I'm just trying to see what if Spot Track has an estimation on what Pierce is going to command off of their values for next offseason or for this upcoming offseason, because sometimes for these top end players in the position, they can demand that. What is our appetite? Because I know that he was talking about it on a podcast recently. Our appetite for DeAndre Hopkins.
No. DeAndre Hopkins. Dude, DeAndre Hopkins, we've begged to come here like 8 times, and he hasn't come.
Well, right. And
Screw DeAndre Hopkins. He can stay where he is.
And we don't need that 3 years later. Like DeAndre Hopkins 3 years ago is a better idea than DeAndre Hopkins today.
No.
I was curious because I was trying to buy time for me to find his projection.
His projection is $20.2 million.
Yeah.
And DJ Moore in a trade, we would acquire $16.5 million of that salary. So his what we would acquire for DJ Moore would be 16.5.
I'm fine with either of those contracts, to be honest with you. Like Alec Pierce, I was worried it'd be like north of 25, but if it is at around 20 to 21, I'd be fine with Alec Pierce on that, especially for like a 3 or 4 year contract. And if you move off Curtis Samuel, get the savings there. Obviously, there's a bunch of cap gymnastics you can do, and you have a ton of dead cap. You have no dead cap on the books for next season, so you have openings to tap into future cap space to sign guys like an Alec Pierce at that level. DJ Moore at 16.5 isn't bad either. Like it's actively one of the best contracts I think you could get on the open market right now if you can swing that trade.
And his outs in 2027. So really, DJ Moore is a 2-year contract.
So DJ Moore was the receiver for the Bears, where they were pointing out on the broadcast that he quit on the pass route at the end of the game, right?
That's few and far between with DJ Moore. DJ Moore sat in Carolina and didn't complain a single time, and just got 1,000-yard seasons while the Panthers were a dumpster fire. Went to the Bears. They got a whole bunch of offensive guys. He's kind of the sore thumb right now, and that's why he's going to be traded. But he's a non-complainer. He's a hard worker. I don't think that's an issue at all. Sorry, Owen. Go ahead. I cut you off.
Well, I was going to say,
turned off Jerry's power. I thought that take was so bad it turned out Jerry's lights.
It was. Jerry just has big feet that hit the power strip all the time.
I think DJ Moore.
It's Owen's cat. They'll interfere with each fight.
Owen's cat needs a segment on the show, I think.
There you go.
I love Owen's cat. All right, we're back.
Yeah, just for the DJ to close with the DJ Moore thing with that point of at the end of the game. Like previously to that, he was always described, and I always understood him to be like kind of those NFL players that are like psychotically competitive. Like Brandon was saying, like while he was in Carolina, like he was one of those dudes that was a culture player for them throughout the issues they had with the Matt Rule era and all these other players, like when they brought Cam Newton back, the dog and pony show that was going on, the 3 quarterback system they were running. He just kind of put his head down and played ball and wasn't really you didn't catch a quote from him. He was one of those players that up until now that, the last thing that happens at a playoff game is always going to characterize your story the entire offseason. Doesn't matter what you did leading up to that. Whatever you did in the last game of your season is going to characterize how people think about you. So I think that being it, not great, but we have a mountain of evidence pointing to the contrary of him being a hardworking kind of developmental guy who eventually hit it big once he was in Carolina, or at the tail end of Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay, and Randall, as you pointed out, he got 2 1,000-yard seasons under Joe Brady as his offensive coordinator, right?
Correct.
So I probably have to learn to accept DJ Moore over Alec Pierce, even though
I would be surprised if his name was mentioned during the interview process.
Cool. Well, why don't we pause for podcaster identification? So, Randall, do you want to let everybody know about Draft Central, Team MBS Media, and everything that you do?
Yeah, I write for Team MBS Media. I do the Arkansas Razorbacks and the Buffalo Bills. We're also going to be starting up the NFL Draft Central soon with Bill Carroll and Greg Rector. We do a show once a week until the draft comes up, and then we do the whole entire draft. Obviously, Draft Professors, I'm doing on Tuesdays with you guys, which I love, and I'm going to get into some Fridays and any time that I can. And I also do a Buffalo Bills podcast with Do Champions on Mondays at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central.
Randall, real quick, you're in Arkansas?
Correct. Fayetteville.
Whereabouts? You're in Fayetteville?
5 minutes away from the Razorback Stadium.
And I'm about an hour and 15 minutes south of you. I'm down in Tulsa.
Oh, you are? That's incredible.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So my next question: how can you have so many guys at Senior Bowl and suck this year?
I mean, have you seen the program? Have you seen the program?
Yes, I have.
Ugh.
I do 2 hours of sports radio every morning here on the Sports Animal in Tulsa, and
that's awesome.
we're up in Northwest Arkansas, so we've got a lot of
Very
Northwest Arkansas listeners. And Pat Jones is a co-host of mine on the second hour. He was from Arkansas, so we got a lot of Arkansas crossover.
Yeah, please, Ryan Silverfield, just be normal and like make us a SEC team.
Well, that's not the head coach's issue. That's the university's issue that wants to pay the basketball coach too much money. But that's a whole nother
Agreed.
episode.
Listen, 100-euro checks got to go.
Yeah, that's cool, man. You're just up. Let me know, man. You're just up the street.
100%. We'll link up for a football game, whether it's in Oklahoma or in Arkansas, whichever one.
Cool.
Yeah.
See, look at that. And you see, I just put people together. I just got to create the room.
I love it.
And everything else just happened. Owen.
Yeah, so you can find me over at The Weekly Huddle on Twitter and on YouTube. I've been trying to get going some of these live watch-alongs, whether it was a live stream immediately after the McDermott firing, where I was live for a couple hours, just ranting, raving about
couple
some of the
hours.
takes. I was up for 2 hours.
It was a 2.5 hour podcast. I saw a lot of it.
That's impressive. 2 hours. Did you crash out or what?
I was a little heated. I'm not gonna lie. The first 50 minutes was on. No, I think I took like 7 breaths the first 50 minutes of it. I was going. But I am going to try to get some more of those live streams going up where I'm just watching film on live. Now that I have a more consistent way to get film, I think it's going to be a lot easier for me now. Also, I'm on twice a week for the Draft Professor. If I'm not on a third time for the mock drafts, I'll be back tomorrow night on Wednesday night with Newt to discuss quarterbacks. We're doing a fun way of just drafting our favorite quarterbacks from this draft class. So kind of diving deep. Watched an Arkansas Razorback and Taylor Green. Not going to be drafting him, Randall. Not going to lie.
Monster.
He's a
monster.
I like the tools, but like someone that tall and that lanky, I mean,
you got a little Achilles. Well, Achilles Smith was bigger than that, but yeah. he's got some. He's definitely an interesting prospect at quarterback for sure.
He's built like an NBA small forward with how tall and like
35-inch arms, 6'6", long stride.
Yeah.
Send him to Indianapolis.
Yes, he'll be fun there. He'll excel in some shorts. But other than that, I'm writing for Cheesehead TV's draft guide, so I'm gonna be doing their interior offensive line column. So we'll finally become a published author with that.
Jerry,
what happened to Owen?
Yeah, he just said his goodbyes in peace.
He literally disappeared. That was not me.
All right, $50. I got $50. The laptop battery ran out. I got $50 on the laptop battery.
Is that common?
Yeah, because it's about this time period, about an hour or so in. Then
it's out.
That's
hysterical.
You can catch me on. We have me and myself. Me, John Fina, and Joe Miller have Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, where we do various shows on there. I have a show on Wednesday night called 7 Days of Sunday that I do with Zay Fracassi, who is a Western New York native, and he is on Sirius XM NFL Radio. We do a show Wednesday night. Fina's got a show. We got like 5 shows during the week, including a post game. And then I also do Bill Squad. That's funny. I also do Bill Squad with Joe Marino and Jeremy White. We will now shift to, instead of Thursday and post game, we'll now do Mondays and Thursdays, where we'll go ahead and cover everything. And our next episode will be Thursday after the introductory press conference of Mr. Joe Brady. So that'll be our next one. And then I also do another one called it's Locked On Network again. It's called NFL Player Squad. That's on Wednesdays. It's a bunch of ex-players that are on the squad shows that get together and do another kind of round table discussion type deal. So that's what I got going on.
And I want to say thank you to everybody for checking out a Draft Professor podcast. Every Friday, Draft Professor does a 32-person 3-round mock. So we'll have one person drafting for each team, and we'll have two podcasters discussing every pick. And those are usually our best podcasts of the week. So a lot of people look at those. So to sign up, if you want to draft for your team, go to @NFL Draft Fanatic, no I in Fanatic. Go to the pinned post, and you can just reply to that with the team you want to draft for, and I will try to make that happen. And if it doesn't happen this week, I can usually make it happen the next week. Some teams are more popular than others, so it's competitive mock drafting. It's much different if you haven't mock drafted against people. It's worth it to check out those podcasts. So even if you don't participate, just watch, because the players that drop in your favorite simulator don't usually drop in those 32-person mocks.
All right, Owen, we got money on this. What happened?
Technical difficulties, not the cat.
No, what happened? What were the technical difficulties?
Yeah, what happened?
Did your battery go out?
No, so for some reason I brought the charger this time. No, my for some reason recently StreamYard's been with my, whether it's my mic or something, it just always randomly will say like there's not a mic connected, and if I try to unmute myself, then my camera goes, and then I just die. So I don't know what's going on with that.
Rats.
I lost.
For Jerry Ostrowski, Randall Slifer, for Owen McCullough, for myself, for the 110 podcasters at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for watching this podcast. We will see you on tomorrow's show. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.